one of the things that I notice every single time I go in, and I like to observe and stuff, is that you have a very good knack or great knack at making us all feel like we're the only patient. And very few people do that, like especially in a setting where you're seeing so many people. And I think like really good personal trainers, doctors, lawyers, like anybody that has like a waiting room of people if you can figure out how to make them feel like they're the only one in the room, then I think you're doing something special. So is there anything that like what do you do? What's your secret sauce? Like, why do you feel like, because I'm telling you, like from hands-on experience, and also I've sent you a lot of people and they all come back and they all feel special. And, so you have something really good there, great there. Like, what do you think about it?
Well, I was kind of talking to Amber about this earlier. First and foremost, this isn't an office where whoever calls enters the door. We pre-screen to an extent that we want people who want to be there primarily, that are on board with the process, that understand that it's going to take time. And we're also, if the energy isn't right, we're not necessarily going to always accept that patient. So we start out by ensuring that the network of people in the office, because we do open adjusting, meaning that people will be seeing what everyone else is doing, it's always going to be congruent and it's the right type of person.
Is there a philosophy behind the openness? Because you do go to some chiropractic offices and it's like in a massage room. Like y'all's, you have three tables in the middle of the space.
It helps because it allows other patients to hear kind of conversations that could pique their interest in things that they weren't aware that could be treated. I'll adjust babies in the office, and someone will be like, "I didn't know you did babies," or a lot of a bunch of different conditions. It really helps. It's also much more efficient, obviously. A busy chiropractor will see on average, a really busy chiropractor, up to 100 patients, in a day. Right. So if you're having to go from room to room to room, you're going to get stuck in there, at times, which is problematic. But more so, what I try to do is, first and foremost, you have to learn the person's name and know their name. People they're not used to getting their name said ever. Like how many people throughout the day, they go through the day, they go to work and they'll get a chief or a buddy every now and then, and then maybe they'll go home. But that's a really interesting feeling. When someone just says, "Hey, Manning," or "Hey, Jordan," that's a good, feeling. And I really do, and that's a skill you have to learn. I really, really do care about these people. So I need to know what their spouse's name is, what their kids' names are, where they're from, who referred them. We make that to be a really important part to memorize. And it does take time. I mean, we'll have thousands of patients, over the course of the years. And that really helps. Now, it does take a little bit of time. The first couple of weeks, I'm trying to kind of learn it, but it is just really just straight effort to know that. There's nothing worse than when someone walks in the room and I don't know who they are. I hate that feeling. It's like so it's also probably just done to ease my anxiety about it, because I'm definitely a natural introvert who has to be extroverted, to do this type of job. So it's a skill that you just had to develop, and it's important. Because if you don't know who you're treating, you're not going to probably care as much subconsciously. So that's pretty important.
So environment, knowing people's name,
knowing the name 100%, and knowing a lot about them that they care about, and really importantly, when someone comes in, so if you're a new patient and you're going to say, "Hey, I'm coming in for whatever, my hip hurts." Okay. The next question is, okay, but what does that stop you from doing? So I want to know why they're here. Not because their hip hurts. Their hip hurts because and it's not allowing them to play with their grandkids. It's not allowing them to run like they used to their entire life. It's not allowing them to, whatever it is. There's something really important about that. So a patient in my office isn't better until their hip pain goes away, but also so that they can do these things.
The thing they want to do.
And learning and memorizing those things is really fun, because it gets the conversation off of "this hurts today" and more on, "Hey, look what I was able to do." Because people do also forget the journey. They come in, they're a 9 out of 10, they can't walk. And if you just talk about pain every time, 2-3 weeks in, they come in, "How are you doing?" "Oh, this hurts here." "Okay, but you crawled in here, you're playing your sports again." So we try to always reframe it back to functional things. What could you do now that you couldn't do before? That's a really, impactful thing. So we care about achievement and functionality, not about whether you're in pain or not. Being in symptom or devoid of symptom doesn't mean you're healthy or not. same person who feels great on Monday and croaks of a heart attack on Tuesday, they weren't healthy on Monday. They just didn't know they weren't healthy.
Right.
So functionality is much more important for us than whether they're in pain or not. It's such a low hanging fruit, and I try to get the patients away from that. There are places they can go to for like aches and pains, similar like what you do with like an osteopath or a functional doctor. We're just doing it, without medicine.
Right. And then
in conjunction with them.
In terms of yourself, so being like, I've always thought of this, for you is that, like you just said, you're seeing almost 200 people a day sometimes. What does it look like for you to prepare for that? Because
you have to,
you have kids, you have a wife, like you have a life too outside of work.
Yeah.
And if you come in a bad mood, we're all going to know it. So, but you don't.
You have to.
What do you do?
Man, it's almost like playing a sport. Like you have to get there early. First and foremost, you can't start at 8:30 with patients and walk in 8:29. It's going to be awful. It's never going to work. So I get there at minimum 34 minutes early. I'll do like some general morning routine stuff that people typically do. Try to journal, try to get my head right for what I'm trying to do, try and move a little bit, get my headspace right. And then I treat it like quarters or like halves of a game. So the day gets split up. I get there early. I'll take some supplements, usually something like a nootropic of some sort. We'll start with the patients. We work hard through the morning. And then at lunch, I don't go home and watch, TV or whatever. I'll sit there, I'll eat, I'll move a little bit, I'll meditate, I'll prepare myself for the second half of the day and then do that. And then as you break that up, it makes the day much easier because you're not letting the day run together and you're always kind of loading yourself, which is a pretty important thing. It's exhausting, don't get me wrong. A chiropractic is an interesting job because you're like a really blue collar, white collar kind of guy. You're doing physical labor, but you're doing it in a setting, so it is a problem that chiropractors struggle with. There's a lot of disability in chiropractic. There's a lot of burnout in chiropractic. There's a lot of people who just can't hack it. There's a lot of people who just can't take it anymore. So because you're not just physically demanding, but it's emotionally demanding. You're managing humans. You're dealing with what they're dealing with. You're listening to them. So there's a lot, exactly the same that you guys have to deal with. So you have to always make sure that because you're right. Patients can tell, when you're off, so that you're always doing the right things to make
and
sure.
we're selfish.
Right.
So what I mean by that is we don't, and let's just keep it real. We don't care what's going on with you. We're there for us.
Right.
So it's like, if you're in a bad mood, you're like, wait a minute, what about me?
Yeah.
I'm the patient.
And that's what I talk to my staff about a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm very good at it. I've been doing it for years, but they're not always as good at it. It's hard to not wear like your emotions in your sleeves, but it's not fair to the patient either to get a lesser visit that day or lesser care because whatever I'm upset about, that's
right, exactly.
That's absurd. I mean, even I was watching the Dolphins game last night. It was a disaster. And there was a time in my life where I would show up grumpy like on Monday because the Dolphins lost, which is so stupid, really, at the end of the day. Now I'm like, okay, that's gone, whatever it is. Because the chiropractor can work through. I've worked through food poisoning. I've worked through a broken rib. I blew my Achilles. I worked through that. I've worked with before COVID, we used to work with the flu and that type of stuff, just kind of to get your headspace right. I'm surely have probably worked with COVID and not knowing I had COVID. I'm sure, how many times have people probably had it? But you have to just be able to separate your personal stuff from being the healer, essentially, and the leader of the office, which you're doing simultaneously.
And when you decided to open up your own place, kind of take us back to that time frame and like what that, because I know that was a big undertaking. Yeah. You're massively successful now, but people don't remember the early days.
Real scary.
Yeah.
Real scary. So I worked, I got out of school, I worked for a chiropractor who was, by all means, a very skilled chiropractor. Things went poorly at the end, obviously, but incredibly skilled, incredibly talented. And I was there with him for about 7 years. I had always wanted to open my own practice, but it's a daunting, you don't really learn business in school at all. Like you just kind of have to learn it as a person. So I searched. Where I am now, that space was empty for a couple of years. And I would walk by it every single day. Look in, I'd walk by it. Oh man, I don't know how to do this. I'd walk by it. I don't know how to do this. And then eventually I had met my wife. We weren't engaged yet, but I definitely, when you met Fee and you guys got serious, it's more about providing, what kind of life do you want to give this person? I knew she was the one. So then I was like, okay, well, this isn't about me and my fears and my whatever. I've got to do this. I have no choice. Something I'm really good at is being able to walk into scary, unknown, dangerous situations and just do it because you just plod forward. It always kind of works. So I decided to go for it. I had saved up a little bit of money. I got an angel investor who was my uncle who said he would do it, but only in my situation, I would only take it from him if we did it like an actual standard bank loan with interest. I didn't want like a handout, from family. So he helped me through that, and it was a nightmare. I mean, how many places you built out. The build out, we had a 3-month, without rent where they would help us, and the build out took a year and a half. It was a nightmare. I went 3 times over budget. My checking account was at 0. My credit cards were maxed out. It was horrifying. But
by the way, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because we've all been through it.
It's horrifying.
If you've done any kind of build out, that's exactly what happens.
But what I did know was that I knew it would work. I knew I had enough of a connection to people in the city. I had built up enough patience at the space that we were at where I knew it would at least, I didn't know I would get to where I am now. And this is kind of wild to think about in hindsight because the goalposts just keep moving. If you would have shown me what things look like now, then I would be doing cartwheels, crying, hysterical. And now like things are very good, but I'm still kind of, oh man, what's the next thing? Where's the next thing? So that's kind of interesting with business. We ended up getting it open in November of 13, and then it just compounded. It took off. It was great. It's been amazing. COVID was interesting. We've had certain things, but there's never been a moment where, since then, where we've really been in any danger. It's always kind of grown because it's a referral-based practice. Because it's Miami Beach is not a big town. It's a small town.
Right.
There's rarely a room that I'm going to walk into where they're not going to know at least who I am, or I'm not going to know one of the people in there, as a patient. It's kind of a cool place. So as long as you're good at what you do and you're ethical and you're honest, like it's going to grow. The build out was terrifying. I don't even know if I would do another one. I've talked about it. I almost opened a spot in South Miami a few years ago, and I drove down and back, and I was like, nope, I'm not doing that because I live 2 blocks from my office. So my life, the only time I drive is today, or if I have to take my kids to school.
Did you bring the muscle car today?
No.
Okay.
Thank God, man. This traffic here?
It's crazy, right?
Man.
Yeah, Fridays too.
No, I haven't driven in through the Design District or wherever we are now.
Wynwood, yeah.
In a long time, man.
No, it's
a nightmare.
Wild. It's wild.
It's just people.
There's just construction and closed roads.
It's cool.
And,
but
it's good for business.
Yeah, Miami Beach is not a trafficy place for the most part. It's just a chill kind of vibey place.
Everybody on their skateboards and rollerblades, just living life.
Yeah, it's well, something like that.
So other than the build out, like I know it hasn't been perfect, for the last 11 years. Has there been anything? What's been your biggest pain point as a business owner and as a leader for your organization?
That's interesting. There's a lot there. Well, as you know, initially it's just you and your wife, and then it's your kids, and then there's this kind of interplay between building and growing and your home life. Like, I don't have to travel for work. I'm not really away that much, but there are times when, like, I get home, I leave in the morning, the kids are asleep. I get home and the kids are asleep. That's painful. Hiring and letting go, allowing other doctors to come in and handle it, and then you not being the guy is the next logical step, which we're doing a little bit more of. But I do have issues with that. Like I want to, maybe that's an ego thing. I'm not really sure, but you want to be there, you want to be hands-on, you want to make sure that's happening. I don't vacation nearly enough. That's a problem that I'm working on because when you leave, things can still run, a little bit.
Right.
I'm not there. The office runs, but not the same. And again, I should probably just start practicing with that a little bit more because I do have a doc who works right now who's good. So I certainly could just leave. So I'm starting to do a little bit more of that. Finding the balance between work and life, but also also the biggest thing that we ever had was because of how rough insurance was. We decided, we're done with insurance. We're going to move towards this out of network, more self-pay, kind of situation. And not only that, we're not going to take patients who want to just come and get cracked, a couple times. We're gonna be an office that does what we call restorative work. You're going to come in, we're going to do an assessment. You've got a little bit of work to do. We're going to take some x-rays. We're going to make sure that you're perfect. We're going to take some new x-rays. Then you can come in, as needed. So this is a very niche type of practice. This happened 2020. I went to a seminar on how to kind of run this appropriately, and our flight home got canceled because COVID hit. So I show up at work the next, so I take another flight the day after, and now it's COVID. No one is in the office. We're seeing 3 people a day for some period of time because the whole city shut down, and we've dropped out of insurance, and we're only taking patients who are doing restorative care. That was horrifying. But then, again, that first few weeks was horrifying, and then the right type of people were in the office, and then it just took off. We grew compoundingly for the first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. That year, we doubled the practice, and then since then, it's been great because energetically, you're getting the right type of patients. It's hard, these places that just do, hey, my neck hurts, I need to get cracked once. That's hard to manage. A lot of energy there, and the patient's not going to get better. Right. They're going to feel temporarily better. And what happens is, if a patient comes in and is hurt, doesn't want to do the work to fix it, and they come in a few times, ultimately it's going to come back. And what's going to happen is the conversation with a friend is going to be, hey, you went to that chiropractic, what happened? Oh, it didn't work. They're not going to say, I didn't do what he told me to do. Yep. I didn't follow through. I didn't do my homework. He's not going to say, I only went 3 times. So that's a hard stand that we had to make. And we'll refer. It's not like we just send them on the street. We'll refer to these places that just do temporary care. These are all scary things. But again, moving forward into the scariness and the things that in your heart that you need to do, and being comfortable with that, being really comfortable with being uncomfortable has really helped, because it is terrifying in business to make steadfast decisions that in the long run will be great, but in the interim, you're turning patients away. Like at times, it's pretty wild.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're playing the long game.
Right.
Which I love.
And you want them to have results more than anything else. It's, you just can't get somebody better and within an adjustment. You see on TikTok, like, oh, I'm fixed. The way that neuroplasticity works and the way that the body changes, you have to have some compounding effect to structurally change the body and get the brain to recognize it and to heal. This one adjustment feels nice, but it may even make them sore. Like they're not going to, get better. So it requires a little bit of work initially.
Right.
Yeah. Unless a patient is someone like you who's been adjusted their entire life, and you take films of them and they look relatively pretty good, which you do for the most part, except for like some football stuff, then that kind of patient can do okay with just coming in for wellness.
Yeah.